This is the next video in our series on quadratic equations. This expression here is a quadratic equation. You can tell it's quadratic because the first variable here has an exponent of 2. That makes it a quadratic equation. So the quadratic equation is equal to two factors being multiplied together. Each of these two factors is binomial. That is, it has two things in it. Like a bicycle has two wheels, each of these expressions inside the parentheses has two things. 1, 2. So that makes it binomial. Now, if the exponent of this first thing was a 2, then this itself would be quadratic, because that's the only thing you need to be in a quadratic expression is to have a variable with an exponent of 2 as your biggest exponent. So if the exponent was 2, it would not be a binomial, it would be quadratic. So our exponent is 1, and there's two objects inside here being added together. So this is a binomial, and this is so the quadratic equation is equal to two binomials factors multiplied together. All right, let's look at our first example. In this example, we have to simplify. We're going to take two objects being multiplied together, this thing and the other object inside the parentheses, and we're multiplying together. So these are factors. When you're multiplying two things together, they're factors. So we multiply this factor times that factor. And this factor here inside the parentheses is a quadratic expression because the exponent is a 2. So we're multiplying two things together. We're going to need a distribution box. So a distribution box, we're going to take the 3, put it out front, and we need three boxes in our distribution box because there's three objects being added together inside of the parentheses. So each object goes on top of its own box. Okay, so 3 times a squared, multiply them together and you get 3a squared. In your second box, 3 times 2a, well, 3 times 2 is 6, so you get 6a. In the third box, positive times a positive gives you a positive. 3 times 3 is 9. So distributing this 3 times all of the terms inside of this parentheses gives us this expression. This is a quadratic expression because the first term has a variable. The exponent of the variable is 2. That makes this a quadratic expression. All right, let's try another one. Same thing over again. We're going to distribute. So we need a distribution box. We need 3 boxes because there's 3 things inside the parentheses. So the A goes out front. This A out front of the parentheses goes out in front of the box. And on top of each box, these 3 things from inside the parentheses. So A times a squared. When you multiply two variables together, it's the same variable, A and A. This one has an exponent of 2. This one here has no exponent, so there's an exponent of 1. If there isn't any exponent at all, it must be 1 time, 1a. So a to the 1 times a to the 2, we add the two exponents, a to the 1, a to the 2. 1 plus 2 is 3, so we end up with a to the third. Second one, positive times positive gives us a positive. This is a to the 1, this is a to the 1. So we're going to have 2 a to the 2. We add the exponents. And the last one, 3 times a. Positive times positive gives us a positive. So this multiplication here gives us this quadratic expression. But that's not quadratic because the exponent on this one is not a 2, it's a 3. That means this expression here is a polynomial because it has more than 2 terms. If it only had 2 things being added together, it'd be binomial. But it doesn't. It's got 3 things added together. So it's polynomial, and it's not quadratic because your exponent is not a 2. All right, let's look at a classwork. So pause your video, make a distribution box, and multiply this 2 times everything inside of the parentheses. All right, let's look at the answer. And pause your video, we'll try another one. Okay, let's look at the second answer. Okay, pause the video and we'll do another one. Okay. Pause your video and we'll do another one. And last one. All right, let's go on to another example. Okay, this time they want us to factor out the common multiple. Okay, so factoring and distributing are two opposite things. When you distribute, you multiply two factors together, and when you factor, you're going to pull things back apart. So let's look at this expression here. This is quadratic because the first term, the variable has an exponent of 2. So this is a quadratic expression, and we're going to see what we can factor out. Well, the way you factor, we use a distribution box, but we're going to put the terms, each of the objects, into its own box, and we're going to see what we can take out. What is the same in every box? And we're going to take that out to the side. Well, this has an A in it. This has an A in it. This one has no A. So you can't take an A out because the last box doesn't have an A in it. Okay, but what can you take out? Well, the smallest number here is a 5. So we could take a 5 out of this one. Well, 5 also comes out of this one, and 5 also comes out of that one. And you couldn't take anything more than a 5 out because all you've got in this one is a 5. So we'll take the 5 out. So 5 times what gives you 5a squared? Well, 5 times a squared gives you 5a squared. Okay, how about for the second one? 5 times what gives you 10a? 2 times 5 is 10, but you're also going to need an a because you got an a here in the answer. So 2a, 5 times 2 gives you 10, and a. So it's 10a. And the last one, 5 times what gives you 25? 5 times 5 is 25. Positive times positive is positive. So we factored out a 5. So this expression up here at the top changed into that. 5 multiplied times this quadratic. Okay, let's try another one. What can you take out of all 3 of these terms? Well, let's put the 3 terms inside of a distribution box, and we'll see what is the same in every box, and that's what we'll take out. Well, there's an A in this one, there's an A in this one, and there's an A in this one, so we can take an A out. Well, how about the 3? There's a 3 in this one. 3 factors out of a 6, because 2 times 3 is 6, so you can take a 3 out of this one. But 3 won't come out of 4, so you can't divide 3 into 4. So you can't take the 3 out, but we could take the A out. So we're going to take the A out. So A times what gives us 3a squared? When we multiply a's together, we're going to add the exponents. So a to the 1 times what would give you a to the 3? Well, it's going to be a to the 2 up here, because 2 plus 1 is 3. But we're also going to need a 3 up here, because there's a 3 here in the answer. So we're going to need 3a squared. A to the 1 times a to the 2 gives you a to the 3. All right, let's try the second one. Well, what do you need up here? Well, we're going to need a 6 because there's a 6 here in the answer. And a to what power? Well, this is a to the 1. So what power a do you need up here to get an a to the 2 in the answer? Well, if it's a to the 1 here and it's a to the 1 there, then 1 plus 1 gives you 2 in the answer. And on the last box, we're going to need a 4 because there's 4 in the answer. And 4 times a gives us 4a. So taking this original polynomial, you get these two factors, an a multiplied times this quadratic expression. This part here, the part inside the parentheses, is quadratic because the biggest exponent of the variable is a 2. All right, let's try another classwork. Just like the example, make a distribution box, put these 3 things inside and see what you can pull out. And then we'll compare answers. So stop the video. All right, let's have a look at the answer. Okay, let's do the next one. All right, let's have a look at the answer. And pause your video. All right, let's look at the answer. And last one. Pause your video. Okay, let's look at the answer. Okay, let's try another example. This time they want us to factor completely. So we're not just pulling something out, we're going to try to find every possible thing we can factor apart. And we mean breaking it up into things being multiplied together. All right, so let's start out with this expression right here. This is a polynomial, right? The biggest exponent is a 3, so it's not a quadratic. And we're going to see what all we can pull out. So we're going to take these three objects here that are being added together, and we're going to put each one inside its own box. And we're going to see what comes out of all three boxes. Well, there's an A in this box, and there's an A in this box, and there's also an A in this box. So we can take out an A. But can we take out anything more than an A? Well, this is an even number, this is an even number, and 6 is an even number. So because it's an even number, we know we can take 2 out, because every even number divides by 2. Well, the biggest number that you've got in this box is 2, so you can't kick out more than 2, because the biggest thing you've got is a 2. So we can take out an A, and we can also take out a 2. So let's take out 2A. Okay, 2A times what gives you 2A to the third? Well, here's the number, the 2, so you don't need a number up here. But the exponent here, there's no exponent, so it's exponent of 1 if it doesn't show an exponent. So the exponent here is 1. So a to the 1 times a to the what gives you a to the 3, because you add the exponents. Well, a to the 1 times a to the 2 gives you a to the 3. Okay, how about the next one? 2 times what number gives you 8? Well, 2 times 4 gives you 8. And here you have a to the 1. So a to the what would give you a squared. Well, a to the 1 times a to the 1, 1 plus 1 gives you the 2. So we end up with 4a. And the last one, here's the a already here. So what number do you have to multiply times this 2 to get to that 6? 2 times 3 is 6. So we need a 3 up there. 3 times 2a gives you 6a's. So we took this polynomial up here and we factor it into this expression here, 2a, multiplied times this parentheses. It's got a quadratic inside of it, because notice inside the parentheses, this is a to the second power. So if the variable is raised to the second power, that makes it quadratic. So this part here is a quadratic expression. Now they ask us in the instructions here to factor completely, which means we know how to factor a quadratic. We factor it with a puzzle box. And this is a quadratic. So then they say factor completely, they want us to break up this quadratic into factors. So with the puzzle box, you take the number on the end, and it goes on top of the puzzle box. And the number in the middle, plus 4, that goes on the bottom. So what two things do you multiply together to get to 3, and then you add them together to get to 4? Well, what's all the ways you can multiply to get to a 3? 3 times 1, that's the only way. And so 3 times 1 gives you 3, and 1 plus 3 gives you 4. So our two factors are, for the quadratic part, this part right here, for the quadratic, our two factors are a plus 3 and a plus 1. So in our answer, we're going to have both the quadratic part of it here, a plus 3 and a plus 1, but also the 2a, because that was the first thing we factored out, was the 2a. So in our final answer, we got to show the 2a, and also we show the two things that we factored out of the quadratic. And that's your final, because you can't factor it any further. All right, let's do another classwork, and you may have to come back and watch this video over again, for example 3, because Classwork 3 looks just like example 3. So try factoring this thing apart with the distribution box, and then break up the quadratic with the puzzle box. And pause your video. Okay, let's look at the answer. I said you could take out a 6a, and after you take out your 6a, you then could factor your quadratic apart with a puzzle box into these two factors. Because there's a 6 in 12, 6 divides into 18, and 6 divides into 6. And each one of these terms has an a in it. So I pulled out the 6a, and then what was left was a quadratic expression that I factored into those two binomials. Okay, let's try the next one. Pause your video, break it up. Okay, let's look at the answer. Okay, let's try the last one. Pause your video. And okay, let's look at the answer. All right, great. Thank you for watching another video.